All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the fascinating and honestly kind of hidden support ecosystem that powers Western Canada's massive heavy industries. You know, when you think of the Canadian resource sector, your mind probably jumps straight to towering oil rigs, or expansive forestry camps, or those massive mining pits. But what we don't usually see is the incredibly complex, highly specialized network of machines and human expertise operating just behind the scenes to make literally all of that possible.
Here's a quick look at our roadmap. We'll start with the backbone of heavy industry, move on to supplying the iron with finning, then look at servicing the sites with Vertex. After that, we'll cover growing through acquisitions, and wrap up with navigating industry challenges. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Backbone of heavy industry.
So think of it like this. To build, operate, and eventually reclaim these massive resource projects, you fundamentally need two pillars. On one side, you've got the immense physical hardware. We're talking the heavy iron, the excavators, the big loaders. On the other side, you absolutely need the services, that highly specialized human expertise for things like environmental consulting, emergency spill response, and really complex fluid management. You simply cannot have a functioning resource sector without both of these working together in perfect tandem. And what's really fascinating here is that both our hardware and our service providers are targeting the exact same foundational industries. Whether it's laying down a pipeline, breaking ground on a massive construction site, or managing the environmental footprint of a power and energy project, both the heavy machinery and the environmental services are being deployed to the exact same remote locations. They're basically two sides of the exact same industrial coin.
Moving right along to Section 2, supplying the iron, featuring finning. Listen, when we talk about hardware in this context, we aren't talking about your buddy's pickup truck. We are talking about serious, earth-moving Caterpillar machinery that delivers the sheer power required to break ground in some of the most unforgiving, remote locations on the planet. We're looking at massive articulated trucks, dozers, motor graders, and those huge power systems and generators that literally keep entire remote camps electrified when they're miles away from the nearest grid.
But here's the crucial point. Finning isn't just a dealership selling a machine and walking away. Not at all. They provide a complete life cycle support system. A massive barrier to entry in this space is just the sheer capital you need up front, while Finning bridges that gap with flexible financing. Need a specialized compactor for just a 3-month job? Boom, you use the Cat rental store. And once that gear is out in the dirt, Finning is right there with genuine parts, full machine rebuilds, and even fluid analysis to make sure these massive investments stay up and running. All right, pivoting now into Section 3, servicing the sites, focusing on Vertex. According to their 2018 annual information form, Vertex has been quietly building a powerhouse since 1962. They've evolved from earlier operations like 3-Star Trucking and Pioneer Land Services to become an absolute force, a leading provider of integrated environmental and industrial services across Western Canada and even in some select U.S. markets. To really grasp their scale, just take a second and look at this number. 650. That's the total headcount of skilled employees and contractors Vertex deploys across their footprint. And these aren't just general laborers. We're talking highly trained professionals holding strict safety certifications, engineers, environmental consultants, and specialized equipment operators navigating really complex regulations. So how does a company like that actually make its money? Well, looking at their 2018 revenue split is super revealing. An overwhelming 83% comes from their environmental services segment, while the remaining 17% is driven by their industrial services. It's a really fascinating glimpse into where the true day-to-day ongoing demand in the resource sector actually sits. Let's unpack that massive 83% environmental slice. These are the absolutely critical everyday tasks that keep industrial sites compliant, clean, and safe, from day one to final shutdown. This covers everything from initial site selection and wildlife management to deploying hydrovac trucks for safe digging with pressurized water. They handle high-pressure fluid hauling, manage engineered chemistry for drilling, and, maybe most importantly, they're the ones you call in for emergency spill response and long-term land reclamation. They are basically the environmental custodians of the whole industry. Meanwhile, that 17% industrial segment, it provides incredibly niche but utterly vital safety and infrastructure support. Picture being on a remote oil rig in minus 30 degrees. Vertex is the one manufacturing the custom insulation blankets protecting the workers and the gear. They're building the rigid metal structures right there on site. And crucially, they deploy specialized high-angle and confined space rescue teams, along with breathing air services. It's high-stakes, super technical support.
And to execute all of this, they aren't just renting out a few trucks. They operate a massive fleet of their own. We're talking 244 of their own specialized power units, well over 300 trailers, and a huge rental fleet of over 1,000 items. That level of heavy capital investment, it creates a massive barrier to entry for any new competitor trying to swoop in and replicate their integrated services.
Which brings us to Section 4, growing through acquisitions. How did they build this beast of an ecosystem? Well, aggressively. This timeline captures their highly strategic growth over just a couple of years. Late 2016, they acquire Red Giant Energy Services for over $11 million to boost their fluid storage. In 2017, they systematically snap up niche engineering, environmental, and chemical firms. Then in 2018, they expand their hydrovac and fluid hauling reach with even more acquisitions. They didn't just sit back and wait for organic growth. They actively hunted down and bought specialized private companies to offer a true one-stop shop to their clients.
And the results of all that buying? A pretty complex corporate structure, all organized under the main Vertex Resource Group umbrella. As you can see, it's a web of subsidiaries, from Dominion Leasing to 3-Star Trucking, all functioning together to deliver that seamless, integrated experience to the client.
Now for Section 5, navigating industry challenges.
Okay, we have to talk about this regional phenomenon because it completely dictates the business cycle out there. It's known as spring breakup. Basically, during the second quarter of the year, the winter frost melts. The ground literally thaws out, turning remote roads to mush, making them totally incapable of supporting the massive weight of all that heavy equipment. Municipalities slap on road bans to protect the infrastructure, so industrial activity grinds to a near halt. For companies like Vertex and Finning, revenues drop off a cliff seasonally, meaning they have to fiercely manage their cash flows around this annual freeze and thaw cycle.
On top of the weather, there's the contract pressure. This entire ecosystem relies heavily on master service agreements, or MSAs. According to the source data, Vertex maintains 101 of these MSAs with various clients. The catch? These agreements can generally be canceled at pretty much any time by either party. So you've got this high-pressure environment where Vertex has to constantly prove their reliability, their flawless safety record, and their competitive pricing, day in and day out, just to keep those vital relationships alive. So why don't they just get crushed by competitors? Because their massive scale is their ultimate moat. The market is full of niche players who might just run vacuum trucks or just do consulting. Logistically simple, sure, but super limited. Vertex, on the flip side, offers the whole shebang. If a client has a problem, Vertex has the engineers to design a solution, the heavy trucks to execute it, and the environmental consultants to make sure it's up to code. It takes a ton of capital and highly skilled labor to maintain, but it creates a protective barrier around their business that the smaller guys just can't touch. So, to wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought. The next time you see footage of heavy industry at work, or maybe you drive past a massive resource site, think about what it actually takes to pull that off. Do you just see the raw resources being moved? Or do you now see that massive fleet of Finning machinery and the hidden army of Vertex environmental specialists operating tirelessly behind the scenes to keep the whole engine running? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. Keep learning, and I'll see you in the next one.